Hello, and welcome to History Inquirer. Today, we will be talking about the War of Spanish Succession, also known in America as Queen Anne's War. It is during this war that future pirates like Blackbeard and Ben Hornigold would learn their skills. But how did this war get started? I'm glad you asked. Let's imagine Europe at the turn of the 18th century, a continent on edge, where dynasties, borders, and alliances are all in flux. The War of Spanish Succession wasn't just another European conflict. It was a clash that shaped the fate of empires and the future of the Atlantic world. Today, we'll journey through the origins, key players, decisive battles, and far-reaching consequences of this war, exploring its impact both in Europe and across the seas. Our story begins with a problem at the heart of Spain. King Charles II, the last of the Spanish Habsburgs, was childless. With no clear heir, the major powers of Europe saw an opportunity and a potential crisis. Charles II wanted to keep his vast territories united under one ruler. Initially, his chosen successor was Joseph Ferdinand, Prince of Bavaria, a descendant through Charles's sister, Margarita Teresa. She was actually named in King Philip IV's will as the successor to Charles II, which then extended to her daughter, Maria Antonia, and grandson, Joseph Ferdinand. Then, to complicate matters, Emperor Leopold I managed to persuade Maria Antonia to grant her mother's rights of succession to him and his son, in particular his younger son, the Archduke Charles. However, King Charles II had another sister, Maria Theresa, who married King Louis XIV, but renounced her claim to the Spanish throne. But as fate would have it, Joseph Ferdinand died unexpectedly in 1699, leaving the throne up for grabs once again. Into this vacuum stepped the Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I, who sought the crown for his son, Archduke Charles, while France eyed the prize for Philip, Duke of Anjou, grandson of King Louis XIV. England and the Dutch Republic, the United Provinces, favored dividing the Spanish Empire among the claimants to maintain the balance of power. With France and the Holy Roman Empire refusing to compromise, Charles II's final will handed everything to Philip, Duke of Anjou. When Charles II died in 1700, Europe braced itself for war. Philip was also in the line of succession to the French throne. However, the real problem that England and the United Provinces had with this was that France also recognized the son of the exiled King James II as King James III of England, who was Catholic. A French victory would create a superpower by uniting the French Empire with that of Spain in an alliance with England and Scotland through James Stuart III. So to break all this down, on the one side, France and Spain backed Philip, soon to be King Philip V of Spain. On the other, England, the Dutch Republic, and the Holy Roman Empire rallied behind Archduke Charles. The stakes? Control over Spain's enormous global empire, territories stretching from Europe to the Americas and beyond. The key figures, monarchs, generals, and influencers were Louis XIV of France, the Emperor, Leopold I of the Holy Roman Empire, HRE, also Queen Anne of England, the Duke of Marlborough, John Churchill, England's celebrated general, famed for his victories, and Eugene of Savoy, the brilliant commander for the Holy Roman Empire. The initial battles erupted across Europe, with fighting in Italy, the Low Countries, and the Rhineland. France quickly moved to secure Spanish territories, while England and the Dutch landed in Flanders. Early victories swung back and forth, but the war soon became a marathon of sieges, skirmishes, and shifting alliances. The maritime conflict also spilled into the colonies, sparking Queen Anne's War in North America. Queen Anne would ascend to the English throne after the death of King William III in 1701, and the passage of a law in Parliament that only Protestant members of the royal family could inherit the throne. It also recognized the succession rights of the House of Hanover following the death of Queen Anne, which occurred in 1714. Some battles would define the course of the war. The Battle of Blenheim in 1704, led by the Duke of Marlborough and Eugene of Savoy, shattered French hopes of a quick victory. This turning point gave the Grand Alliance, England, the Dutch, and the Holy Roman Empire, HRE, a decisive edge. Other clashes, like the battles of Ramillies and Audenarde, I probably butchered the pronunciation of that, but anyways, further weakened France's position. But the war was far from over. Meanwhile, Spain itself was a battleground, with Catalonia, Valencia, and Andalusia experiencing fierce fighting. At sea, naval engagements determined control of trade routes and colonial possessions. The Alliance forces were again victorious at the Battle of Malplaquet, but it was a Pyrrhic victory due to the tremendous casualties. It was due to the casualties suffered by both sides that caused the factions to seek peace. At least one of the reasons. Also, in 1705, the Emperor Leopold I died and was succeeded by his son, Joseph I, who had also passed away in 1711, leaving the crown to his brother, the Archduke Charles. Across the Atlantic, the war was known as Queen Anne's War. English, French, and Spanish settlers in North America found themselves swept up in the global conflict. Towns were raided, alliances with the Native American tribes were forged and broken, and battles for control of territories like Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and Florida raged. In 1704, 50 French and 200 Abenaki warriors raided the town of Deerfield, Massachusetts, in what would become known as the Deerfield Massacre. The colonists would respond in kind by attacking French settlements, including Bonavista in Newfoundland and also Quebec, though they failed to take it. In the South, Carolinians attacked the Spanish and French forces and their native allies. They even captured St. Augustine in 1702. Later on in 1712, and I quote, Colonel John Tuscarora Jack Barnwell led 33 whites and 500 friendly Indians over 300 miles of woodland and swamp. The surprise attack on the Tuscarora took 52 scalps and many prisoners, whom the victorious Indians enslaved. End quote. The war shaped the development of colonial America, hardening rivalries that would echo for decades. The chaos of war at sea created opportunities for pirates and privateers. Famous names like Blackbeard, Benhornigold honed their skills attacking enemy ships and coastal settlements. These men were often commissioned as privateers, essentially legal pirates, by governments eager to disrupt enemy commerce. The end of the war left many of these sailors unemployed, leading to a surge in piracy that defined the early 18th century. After more than a decade of fighting, exhaustion and shifting fortunes forced the powers to the negotiating table. The Treaty of Utrecht, signed in 1713, and subsequent agreements in Rastatt and Baden, finally ended the conflict. The terms were sweeping. Philip V kept the Spanish throne, but renounced any claim to the French crown, preventing a superstate. Spain ceded territories such as Gibraltar and Minorca to Britain, the Spanish Netherlands and parts of Italy to Austria, and lands in North America, including Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, to Britain. The balance of power in Europe was restored, but the world had changed. The War of Spanish Succession reshaped Europe's political map and set the stage for future rivalries. Britain emerged as a major naval and colonial power, holding strategic outposts and expanding the influence in the Americas and Asia. The principle of balance of power became central to European diplomacy, influencing conflicts for centuries. Meanwhile, the aftermath of war in the Americas laid groundwork for further colonial struggles and the rise of the infamous Golden Age of piracy. Tensions between the British and French would linger and lead to King George's War in 1744, which in turn would lead to the French and Indian War in 1754. In 1714, Queen Anne, the last English monarch of the House of Stuart, would pass away. She would be succeeded by King George I of the House of Hanover, who was descended from King James I through his daughter Elizabeth. The war also had an impact on American shipbuilding. War so stimulated the colonial shipbuilding that Philadelphia and Boston boasted 15 shipyards apiece. By 1720, New England alone sold 187 vessels abroad during the War of Spanish Succession. Meanwhile, in France, after a long reign of 72 years and 110 days, in 1715, King Louis XIV would pass away at Versailles, leaving the French throne to his 5-year-old great-grandson, King Louis XV. It would be his ineffective rule that would lay the groundwork for the French Revolution in 1789. So, what can we learn from the War of Spanish Succession? It's a story of dynastic ambition, diplomatic intrigue, and the interconnectedness of world events. The choices made by monarchs and generals sent ripples across continents, shaping the destinies of nations and the lives of ordinary people. From palace intrigue in Madrid to pirate raids in the Caribbean, this war reminds us that history is never confined to one place. It's a tapestry woven from many threads. Thank you for joining me on the History Inquirer. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the past isn't just behind us, it's all around. Thank you.